There was a statement on through Spurs saying that following a routine post-operation check in Italy yesterday, Antonio Conte will remain at his family home to recover from his recent surgery. Health is the most important consideration and everyone at the club wishes him well. Stellini will assume first-team duties. And there's also been from noise from Antonio Conte as well, who said on Instagram, "My great sense of responsibility towards the club, the players, the staff and the fans brought me to anticipate my comeback on the field. Sadly, I underestimated the procedure, which wasn't a routine operation, but a sudden and serious emergency. My body has suffered my impatience and now I'm forced to stop until my entire recovery. Who knows me understands what a burden this is for me, but it is necessary. Come on, you Spurs." We'll start off with you, Brains. I mean, can Spurs, we don't know when Conte is going to be back now. Can Spurs cope without Antonio for the foreseeable future?
I mean, like, with Stellini, he's got a pretty good record. So, like, we've not lost with Stellini in charge, right?
Yeah.
Two games, 2 wins.
And 2 big games as well, to be fair.
Yeah, and I also like that when Stellini was in charge, they did that thing where they like adjusted Dyer's. Clearly, Dyer is one of the biggest problems. They adjusted his starting position. They made him move around a little bit. I like that. Like, have we seen Conte do that? You know, arguably not. So, I think Stellini's got some chops, and maybe he's been hand-tied as the second in charge. Obviously, ideally, you want you want Conte there, but if it's we have our best performance against City, followed by our worst performance of the season against Leicester, a team that we normally beat. So it just something isn't really sitting right now, you know. And this kind of like this stuff with Conte, like especially stuff like this where it's like open ended, where it's not like you never get it'll be over in a week's time or 2 weeks' time. It's like kind of open ended. It's like he could just be chilling with the fam in Italy. You know, when's Italian Fashion Week? Is it been or is it coming up? Is he waiting for that? So yeah, it's jokeable, but it does leave you constantly in this situation of, do we have a manager that's invested? Like, do we really have a manager this season? Because all this stuff is just constant like negativity. It's like, is he just writing this out? What's going to happen after the he gets back from the gallbladder thing? Was he like, another thing comes up? Like, it seems a lot of I don't know. Never before have we had a manager who's a sick note. You know, you're used to like Lucas Moura being like, no, we've got a manager. So yeah,
that's how bad our medical team is. Even our manager's going down injured.
Yeah, man, it's just kind of crazy. So I mean, I obviously wish him the best, and I want obviously Conte to stay, because I think him going like starts a series of events that I don't think anyone is quite ready for just yet. But if it's gonna happen, then maybe it should happen sooner or later. But yeah, I think I don't think it's a good thing, but I do think Stellini's quite capable.
Sean, what are you thinking?
If I'm honest, sort of been feeling more and more like we should rip the Band-Aid off on Antonio Conte. I feel like, look, there's no lack of love from me towards him. I empathise with his health. I think he's going through a period of his life where there's so much change and he's in a mourning process. You know, a lot of people talk about this. You lose 3 guys that are under the age of 60. I think they all were under the age of 61. 3 of your closest. We don't know whether he's familiar with, loss to that regard before then. And on top of that, you have the gallbladder issues. You probably start to reflect on, the important things in life. He's obviously a little bit homesick. He comes across as homesick to me. I don't think his heart is in the job. I think he looks at the challenge in front of him, the players that we have, the willingness to go and buy the players that we need. And it's all probably a little bit too much, and I feel like the energy that he presents of late has been so lackluster. I know that there's going to be consequences if he leaves, or potential consequences with regards what will that mean for Harry Kane's future and other things, other change to come. But I don't think that necessarily is a fait accompli until you know who the next manager coming in would be. I think if it's one type of manager, I think that Kane may hang around. If it's another, I think maybe he doesn't. But I think you have to deal with the here and now. It's the cheapest. It would be the cheapest parting of managerial ways that Tottenham have had in recent years. The amount of money we've spent cancelling Pochettino, Nuno, Mourinho's contracts, that's like 10, 12 times what it would cost to cut the cord here. And to me, I feel like, what's the point? We know we're all treading water a little bit. He's obviously sick. Why don't we just release him and bring someone else in? Because you never know what can materialise for the second half of the season. And I think it's too much of a disruption to our team to go from him to Stellini. I get on board with what Brains is saying. I think Stellini's would be fine as a caretaker, but I don't see any potential. I don't see any future with Conte at the club next year anyway. So for me, I would probably say let's have a frank conversation, shake hands, wish everyone the best, and probably find a new path.
Well, based on this news that he's has to recover from his injury, you would do that?
No, I just think it's like this is like another. For me, it's probably like the straw that's breaking the camel's back a little bit. I've been feeling like it's a fait accompli anyway, and I don't like the style of football. I can't stand the style of football. I've always been consistent in my distaste for his press conferences, the things he says, the things he doesn't say. I didn't like the fact that he criticised the ability to handle pressure of the players. I don't think you need to do that in open forum. There's lots of little things that I think are piling up, and I just think that maybe if his health is that that bad, also why would you go against doctor's orders? Surely to say now, I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but it is. Surely he's got the best doctors in the world. Someone would have said, no, can you not go back to England? Can you hang around and make sure you're better first? But he didn't. He came home. I just think his mind's not in it. His heart's not in it. And there's still so much to play for this second half of the season that I think we should maybe.
But Sean, surely if its heart's not in it, then he wouldn't have rushed himself back.
Yeah, I think people are not giving him enough credit for not credit, but I think you've been doing him a disservice to say that because he rushed himself back, that's a sign of him having his heart not in it. I think it's the opposite.
Other things though. I'm not saying it's just the surgery.
He's come out. He said he shows great. It's because he feels that responsibility to the team. He wants to be back on the touchline as soon as possible. He doesn't want to be away from that team because I think he is doing his best. Obviously, he's had a lack of energy last couple of games, but I think that's understandable given his operation. I don't think he should have been on the touchline. I agree with that, and I think he himself concedes he rushed himself back. But I don't see the fact that he did rush himself back as a sign of him not caring or his heart not in it. I think that's, if anything, that shows to me that he really is committed right now, and anyway, to doing the best for Tottenham Hotspur, and really wants to impact the team himself, and he wants to make sure we get back on the right track. Hasn't gone right over the past couple games, but I wouldn't question where his commitment is, in my opinion.
Do you think he'll be here next season?
That's a big question, but
that's the $1 million question, isn't it?
I mean, I personally don't, to be honest. I don't, but I think that when you're questioning his desire to work for Tottenham, I think that for him rushing himself back from a surgery, I think that's clear to see that he wanted to be there on the touchline. He wanted to be there for his team. He wanted to be there for the fans, and he was putting his own health at risk to do that.
But Ben, that's bad management. It's like rushing a player back when he's not ready. And we've kind of seen that happen. Under Conte. It's like there is this kind of rashness sometimes. It's like you're the man in charge. You have to do the right things. You are the person who has to lead with responsibility. You can't be pulling yourself. If it is, see, I can view it that I can imagine that doctors would have said, look, they never. If the doctor says do not go back to the side of the pitch, there's no way he's going back to the side of the pitch. I think doctors would have been, look, well, see how it goes, see how you feel, go to the training ground, see how you feel. And they probably would advise, but look, we say, these amount of weeks are probably better for you. And then he's kind of just went because he's maybe felt all right. But he wasn't himself, at the Leicester game. You could see he looked white as a ghost, and so I think, but then at that point, it's like, okay, you weren't yourself, you looked horrified. Then don't take the travel, don't take the trip and be at the side of the pitch at an even bigger match. So I see it as like a multitude of like bad decision making. It's like, and sometimes I feel that about him is that
yeah, but that's fueled by his desire to do well for us, to have that responsibility. I'm just saying, it's coming from a place of I want to make sure that my team is in like doing the right thing for his team. Like he feels that responsibility. It's not coming from a place of ego. I don't think. I don't. Anyway,
that's fair enough. And maybe I should like retract what I said about the.
Retract it, Butler. Retract it.
I don't think my thoughts on what we should be doing now with regards letting him go is not based on his whether he's like I just don't think he's the right guy for the job, and I think if he's going to take a meaningful period of time off, I also don't see him being at the club next season anyway. I think all that stuff is a fait accompli, and so why not take this opportunity to say, listen, mate, you're under a hell of a lot of stress with your physical health. You know, let's call a spade, right? Like, unless you want to commit, let's take the opportunity and say, don't worry about rushing back. Go and be with your family. Go and get better. I'm not saying this with any animosity towards him. I wish him all the best. But if he's going to be away for some meaningful period of time, then why not just release him from the additional stress of having to think about Tottenham? Say, look, you know, it's probably not going to work out, right? It hasn't. I don't think it has worked out. Right guy, wrong club, or wrong club.
Yeah, square
wrong
peg,
manager, whatever,
yeah.
right? So I think that maybe we could take this because there's still things for Tottenham to play for, and I think that Tottenham Hotspur, when they're not playing in the way that they can be playing, we could be getting more from this team.
Sean, where do you think we should be? Where do you think we should be right now?
Playing better. I think we're capable of playing better.
I think we should be in the top four, 100%. I think we should be in the top four.
It's not that we're that far away. There's a whole half a season to go.
Or like 3 points away. But the thing is, that Leicester game was a massive opportunity. See, we win that game, and then the rest of those results turn out the way they turned out. Like, we would have been flying there. Then you got such a boost going into the Milan game, which I actually think, other than Romero, everyone played well. But I think I'm kind of like in the same boat as Sean. But I would just a little change would be that maybe because I still believe in Conte's ability in like a one-off game. The same as like I wanted Mourinho to take that final, because Mourinho in a final, we can win that cup, you know? Like, you never know what happens. So I still think that if Stellini took these games and, Conte came back when he was ready for the next round of the cup or for the next Milan game, but say those games like 1 or 2 games here don't work out, you know, like Conte comes back, I think very soon the decision should kind of be made, like, you know, like, I think we have to start calling a spade a spade. I fully agree that he has not been backed. It's really just been the weirdest match of man and club that I've ever seen in my life. A club that just doesn't back managers, a manager that moves as soon as he's not backed. It's been bonkers of a journey. And yet we're still kind of doing okay. And that doing okay tells you more about Harry Kane, like, carrying a team even further. Take Harry Kane out this season, I think we're in a relegation battle, and that would be a different telling of what's happening with your manager. You've got Antonio Conte, but you're in a relegation battle. Only reason you're not is because you have Harry Kane, and that for me is like a shocking indictment of his time.
But you know, Brains, you can make the same argument under Jose Mourinho with Kane and Son. You know, the big players were stepping up in all the big moments throughout. And at the end of the day, right, what manager are you going to get to come in to get a tune consistently out of the players that we do have, the Ryan Sessegnons, the Eric Dyers, and so forth? So, I mean, I don't really see the value. I don't really see the value of sacking Conte.
Yeah, no, you're right, because like you're right in the way that like. In a way, this is how bad it is with Spurs. Like, we have such a shocking defense and have had the same culprits for a while that it's kind of like it's always going to happen. So I agree in the way that it really kind of doesn't matter who you bring in. That as long as you've got those defenders at the back, it's going to be a nightmare unless you bring a manager in who can pick the right array of the right numbers or right players at the back. And then
about the back though, Brains, is it, mate? Like, let's be honest. Like, Sonny has been utilised once this season off the bench as an experiment, and it worked. And everyone that was supporting Sonny was saying, "See, that is the justification to never have to drop Sonny again." to me, it was the justification that the experiment worked, and you should use
100%.
that as a strategy more frequently.
Yep.
But he hasn't. He continues to trust this guy who's played, abject football all season, with the exception of that half an hour. We do have options up front for the first time. For most of the first half of the season, there were periods where we didn't have any attacking players on the bench because of a series of injuries. Now we have options. He refuses to use them. And
until 80 minutes in a game where the game is like you're just trying to make sure you don't lose another. Yeah,
I think it's just absolving Conte of all responsibility or accountability, because the defense isn't good enough. But at the same time, the defense pre Leicester, I think the defense went 5 clean sheets from 7, right? So, and yet Conte gets the credit for that. But then when the defenders start to leak goals again, it's the defenders' fault. Like, there's no consistency in the application of where the accountability goes. I think Conte deserves far more than he gets, and I think with this additional news about his health, I don't think he's going to come. I don't think he's going to be back in the summer, and I don't think he'll be back for a while now. Like, for me, it's in his best interest if he doesn't have the commitment to Tottenham for the next 2 or 3 years. Then I don't know. If you love them, let them go, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think Conte does need some accountability. I don't think maybe it is as much as you're saying, but you got to agree that he's been very unlucky with injuries this season, and we would be doing a lot better if we wouldn't having these injury crises that we did have. I mean, whole first half of the season we didn't have any backup forwards at all. Now we've had our midfield decimated with Bentancur and Bissouma out for a long stretch of time. Lloris is out now for a while. So I mean, and not only that, but we only got one left wing back in the squad now, Ivan Perisic. I mean, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but we're going to miss Ryan Sessegnon now for the second half of the season. But I mean, you got to understand that he has been super unlucky, and if it wasn't for these injuries, then we'd be doing a lot better, wouldn't we?
100%. 100%. There's lots of variables to explain the season so far. Not all of them start and exist with Conte being to blame. Not all of them start and exist with the players, and certainly not all of them start and finish with our chairman being.
Yes, they do.
The fault of, like, the sum of all fears.
They all start with Daniel Levy and they all end with Daniel Levy. Let's be honest now. Let's just finish off this part of it and just get a final answer with you guys. Like, if Conte is going to be out for a number of games, we've seen Stellini come in on the odd game and do a good job, but can he do it over a prolonged amount of time, 3-4 games, if that is going to be the case? Do you believe that we can get the results we need over the next 3-4 games if Conte is not going to be on the hot seat?
Who's that? Should I go first?
Yeah, go on, Brains.
Yeah, I mean, it's like one of those things. It's like you don't know until you see it. But there's something about when he speaks about things. I just feel like there's a quiet confidence in the man, and I think he's a really good people person. Like, I don't know if you've clocked how he, like, when he's making decisions, sometimes he goes and speaks to like really senior players, like, and uses them as his second in command. Like, I don't know if you saw, like, Perisic came off, was it against City or one of the games? Perisic came off, and he almost like kept Perisic close to him, like talking to him through it almost every other play. Like he involves people. So I just think he's got a pretty good way about him. I think players in the team really like, I think we've seen it, that players fight for him when he's on the side. So you never know. Like, that's kind of like the new manager bounce in a kind of small way. It's just, you don't know whose side is going out. Like, obviously, Antonio might not be there, but it could just be all his tactics. But the only one thing I remember seeing, which was quite clearly not an Antonio thing, was when him and Ryan Mason made that decision to change Dyer. And look, we can say that was it was no biggie. That was a massive decision. It shut down their key playmaker. It totally shut down that space. Bernardo Silva was dead in the game at that point, and then Haaland couldn't get in. So I think that was I was quite shocked by that. I was like, well, that's like a massive decision to make. So if you're going to take that decision in that big game, maybe he deserves, a little shot, and we can see what he's worth. But I'm as quietly confident as he sounds in himself. I am in him,
Fair enough. Sean?
Yeah, look, I'll just keep this one quick brief. I think that I agree with Brains. There could be a little small kind of version of new manager bounce, and we need that. Like, we need that now. We need a little bit of consistency. I think if we can go on through Stellini coming in, maybe taking the shackles off a little bit, then maybe we can get 2 or 3 games that are consistent, good performances, consistent, good results. And then from then on, maybe the confidence of the players can return. And then we can go on that kind of run that we were talking about after Man City, before Leicester. So I think that I'm not worried. I think that Stellini's got enough chops about him to be able to get some performances against 2 tough opposition in West Ham and Leeds coming up.
Chelsea, yeah.
Chelsea, not Leeds, no, West Ham.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm not too worried about it. Obviously, it's not great having Conte in a situation of recovery, and we all wish him the best. But Stellini and Conte have been working together for a very long time. They know each other. Stellini knows what Conte wants. I'm sure Conte will have Stellini will have Conte's ear as well. Like, I don't think it's too much in terms of a change in how we play or anything like that. Obviously, we saw how they played against Man City when Conte wasn't barking orders at them all the time. But Stellini, I think, has done his admirable job filling in for Conte when he's needed to. So I don't see it being an issue from that point of view. I just hope Conte isn't out for too long.
Yeah, let's hope so. I mean, I think it can be a problem if it's like a real, like, prolonged amount of time. But I think if it is 3 to 4 games, I think we can handle it. But I got a feeling like if it is between 1 or 2 months, something crazy like that, then we will start to feel it at some point.